Welcome to the Football Show. I'm Peter Martin, Tam McManus alongside me, and of course, thank you to you for joining us on the Football Show, which is absolutely free 5 days a week on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button for free if you want exclusive and additional content and prize giveaways aplenty. Then why not hit our subscribe button for PLZ Premium, where you'll get lots of one-to-ones, early access to the journos as well as other programming, lots of straight talk programmes about to be released on there as well. So, lots to get our teeth into today. Tam, if anyone was laughing at Rangers earlier on in the week in European football of a Celtic persuasion, they certainly weren't laughing last night at Celtic Park, because it finished 0-0 and their hopes of qualification for the Champions League are quite simply hanging by a thread. What did you make of it?
Yeah, first and foremost, I thought it was a really disappointing performance from Celtic, particularly first half. I thought they lacked intensity. I thought they were too slow. I think a lot of the Celtic fans were maybe surprised at the quality of Kairat. I think early doors they had 2 corners in the first couple of minutes. You know, a lot of people thought they were just coming lambs to the slaughter. Celtic would win 3 or 4-0 comfortably and send the stiffs over to Kazakhstan. That's not what happened. I thought they were better than anticipated. I thought Celtic were poor. Final third, Celtic every time just came up against a kind of wall, a yellow, and couldn't break them down. I think going over there will be a different game, because I think that they will have to come out and try and win the game, and the pressure is a little bit switched onto them now. But it does sit in the balance, Peter. You know, I think that Celtic will have to go over there and play really well to beat them, because I thought they were organised, fit, hungry. You know, they've never been a team from Kazakhstan qualified for the Champions League, so they're a real hungry team. They want it badly, and Celtic will need to go over there and want it more than them.
Yeah, I mean, before we, look at the aftermath of it, I think first and foremost, going into the game, you're saying to yourself, Celtic were looking for maybe 1 or 2 goals of a lead. You looked at his team selection. He has constantly, as you read between the lines, highlighted that there is an absolute need for Celtic to try and sign players of a certain calibre to get them to the Champions League. Now, before we actually analyse what I call the aftermath of damage limitation, PR spin, call it what you will, I think, to be fair to Brendan Rodgers and the Celtic players, it is only half-time. They are more than capable of going away and producing a performance. And the reason I say that to you is on the evidence of what we witnessed in the Allianz Arena. Celtic played some really good football, the best I'd seen in a long time, and they're going to have to replicate that. But I'm just wondering what type of player and what team selection is going to be there to actually step up to the plate to produce that moment of magic.
Yeah, listen, I think Celtic are capable of going over there and winning, Peter. You're right. I think they showed away from home last season in the Champions League group stages that they're capable of going away from home and putting in big performances, but they're going to have to, because I thought they were decent. I think they're a decent outfit. I think going back to what you're saying about the calibre of player, you know, I had a slight chuckle when they were shouting sack the board and the £11 million player trotted on as a sub. So I think they've both got to take equal blame. Listen, Celtic fans want to see players in, I get that, but Brendan, you know, you've got Adam Ida, who was poor last night and got hooked at half time. You've got Engels, who can't get in the team. You've got Trusty, who can't get in the team.
Sam, let's be honest. The manager doesn't actually sign all the players.
I know, but I think he did say, Peter, he's had the final say on them.
Well, I'll tell you, if and I've no doubt about Brendan's words saying he's got the final say. Well, in that case, Brendan has to shoulder some of the blame.
That's what I'm saying.
Because I'm looking at it right now, and I had a list of players that have been signed since Ange Postecoglou left. So Jeffrey Schlupp, Jota, Luke McCowan, Arne Engels, Austin Trusty. By the way, some of these are £6 and £11 million, £9 million as well. Alex Vaya, Adam Ida, £9.5 million. Paulo Bernardo, Kasper Schmeichel, Sinisalo, the goalie, Nicholas Kuhn, Sean McCardle, promoted from the academy, of course, Nat Phillips, Luis Palma, Lager Bielka, Narovsky, Kwon, Yang, Iwata, Tilio, Home, and then Nigrin, Shin Yamada, Inamura, Callum Osman, Tierney, Ross Doohan, and Jai Simpson Pusey. Now, the manager might have the say on them, but I think the manager's at fault then for not saying, listen, there's 27 players registered that are available for you to look at on the Celtic FC website that they consider their first team players. 27 of them. And I would criticise Brendan Rodgers then and say, Brendan, you should have said to them, I only want 22, and if you're going to sign players, stop signing projects at 1 and 2 million that I have to sanction. Clearly, if we're believing what you're saying there, he's sanctioning players at 1 and 2 million pounds, and they're not doing the business for him. And when you have a situation where Trusty rarely gets an appearance, Engels can't even get in the team, and then you're saying Ida has not got it at Champions League level, and I still have my doubts with him at Scottish Premiership level.
Well, I'm going to defend Ida a little bit, Peter. I watched the game last night, obviously, and as an ex-striker, I always kind of watch the strikers. He didn't get any service, firstly.
No.
I think you've got two wingers, Peter. You've got James Forrest, who shouldn't be starting in the Champions League qualifier. He should be coming on as an impact sub 15, 20 minutes. I don't think he's a starter now at his age. He cuts inside all the time, Peter. He cuts inside, he tries to play 1-2s, he plays in between. He doesn't get the byline and cross a ball. Maeda on the other side is the same, he cuts inside. So if I'm a striker, he's not getting any service, he's not getting cross balls. And I get it, he get hooked at half time, and a lot of people will go, oh, he didn't do much. And he didn't, but he didn't get a lot of service, Peter. So I'm going to give him a pass on last night. But you're right, guys like Engels, I mean, you're signed the guy for Nygren for £1.5 million. And he's come straight into the team, and Engels is still on the bench. You know, Luke McCowan's played a few times before him, so I think that's the main one. And Austin Trusty, £6 million, and you're still playing Scales. So I think those two are the main ones for me, where Brendan seems to have got it wrong, because he's playing guys that are Scales cost next to nothing, and Nygren was £1.5 million, and they're playing in front of guys at £11 million and £6 million. So I think if you're a Celtic supporter, your fingers are pointed squarely at the board, but I think Brendan Rodgers, as you said, has to take a lot of blame as well.
Yeah, but I think he takes a percentage of it, Tam, because he is, for me, merely a part of the ladder where he's involved in a process where he's basically said, we've got these players, we've got the chance to sign them, you're going to coach them. And he has to have a look at them and say, right, okay, I'll coach them, but I'm demanding, or I want 3 or 4 quality players over and above them. And he hasn't got those 3 or 4 quality players. Now, of those players that I mentioned to you there, he surely, if he's having a say in them, must look at all the signings and say...
He did it off the boy in Amura the other day.
Well, I mean, he's just absolutely booted him right out into left field with that line.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In he comes, one for the future, suddenly goes out on loan. I mean, somebody said to us in a stat in the office that of all the players, I think there's been and I'm talking a lot of players, only 5 that have gone out on loan that have come back. Only 5 of the players of many, many that have gone out on loan in the last few years have actually come back and made an impact in the first team. The rest of them are all going out on loan. I'm not sure of the exact figure, but there's a lot of players.
So basically, if you're a Celtic player and you put out on loan, that's you done.
You're done, But right now, I'm looking at that team and I'm saying to myself, of all the players that he's signed there, he's put the team out in the park. He has consistently said he wants better quality. Now, I think you can draw a line in the sand on where it all has gone wrong on the remit that Brendan Rodgers had coming back to Celtic. His remit was get them into the Champions League group stages and maybe, at a bonus, get a group stage knockout phase game, which I think Brendan deserves credit because that's exactly what he did, whether it's a new format that suited them or not. So he gets that, and they play brilliant football in the Allianz Arena. But let's not forget, Tam, for me, the line in the sand is the Allianz Arena, because the board sold his best striker and didn't give him a replacement. And they were within a whisker of knocking Bayern Munich out. They could have taken them to extra time. They had a chance in that game where Maeda missed it in the 6-yard box, and it was a classic Kyogo chance. And you're saying to yourself, okay, it's all hypothetical, ifs and buts, but the one certainty is they didn't have a striker when they should have replaced him, and they knew he was going because he was stamping his feet and he wanted to go. So they should have brought somebody in as replacement. And the one thing about it is the manager knew. He thought he was getting a replacement, and then something happened in the process. So from there on in, to where we are looking at Celtic now, Brendan Rodgers has looked again in this process, said, okay, I'll sanction certain players, but by the way, I need those 3 quality players. And in this chain of command, the people above him, and I know exactly how this chain of command works, and I'll explain it to you shortly. In that chain of command, he's not been able to get the players that he's wanted. And last night, I just thought they were found absolutely wanting with creativity and the ability to go past a man and create 2-on-1s. And as you said, maybe we'll cut him some slack, but getting service to strikers. And I'm sorry, Tam, I wouldn't play Ida in front of Maeda. Maeda scored 33 goals, for God's sake.
Yeah, the problem is with that one, Peter, is if you play Maeda through the middle, who do you play left? Do you play Yang? There's not got any options, Peter, to change it. I get what you're saying, but he's
the
not.
Answer is, by the way, yeah, at least Yang, when he came on, actually got to the byline.
He looked lively, but end product.
Absolutely, but at the end of the day, of what you have available, you've got to say to yourself, well, who... If I'm basing it on percentages, the way people look at footballers these days, who's got the highest percentage of being likely to get to the byline and cross, and maybe out of those percentages get it into a striker? And I would be far happier with Maeda hovering about the 18-yard box than I would with Ida.
I think the problem is, Peter's the final third. I think when you look at the players that Celtic had last season, obviously re-signed Jota, Nicholas Kuhn, Kyogo. There's 3 players that are not there anymore, and the players that are in there now are nowhere near it. You look at it, even last season as well. You had Adamida adding that in, so that's 4. Now you've got Inamura, Ida, Kenny, Yang, and Forrest as your front 5. Shinamada, sorry, and that's your 5, and that's nowhere near good enough for Champions League level. It's nowhere near good enough, and they might get away with it this tie. They might get away with it. They might go over there and win.
Yeah,
but if they go into the Champions League with this squad, they'll not pick up a point, Peter. I don't think Celtic will pick up a point because they won't be able to have that quality to break teams down.
Yeah, but it's difficult to say that, Tam, because sometimes, because of the nature of the way this Champions League format is set up, some people said Celtic got lucky last season because they had a really good group that they were in and they were able to pick up those points. But you can't say until you know. But what I think everybody could sensibly say is quite simply, based on the evidence of what they watched there, they didn't look as if they were capable of getting in behind them. Now, as you said, it might change over there. I actually think Celtic have got a good chance of going there and getting the win. But if they don't, the fallout from it is unbelievable, because then there is a real clamour and a real PR spin coming from this board, which is like a well-oiled machine, to try and stem the flow of anger that's going to come from the stands and from people saying, listen, enough is enough here.
Yeah, I think you've seen that last night, Peter, with the sack the board chance. It's been a long time since you've heard that at Celtic, probably just before Fergus McCann took over. But
only Celtic could shoot themselves in the foot at a point where Rangers have dropped points in the league, and they look as if, for me, they're out of the Champions League as well, which is a catastrophe for Scottish football, the two of them. You would have thought those two were in, and we'd be talking about Aberdeen and Hibs potentially having to battle to get into their European group stages. So you're now looking, you're saying to yourself, the big two in Scotland potentially not in the Champions League, dropping out into the Europa League, which is not what the fans want. They want to see top-end football, regardless of the fact that they think they're top 4 teams.
I'm not sure the Rangers... I think Rangers fans would want it for the money, but I'm not sure the Rangers fans looking at that team would want them to get in the Champions League, because they're already the worst ever team statistically in the Champions League.
Yeah.
And I think they could be even worse with that squad. If they somehow go over to Brugge, Peter, and pull off a miracle, which it would be a miracle for me, and they go into the Champions League with that squad, they'll get murdered. So yes, the supporters. I think particularly Rangers are a Europa League team. Celtic, you could argue last season done well in the Champions League. You could argue they're a Champions League team, but I get what you're saying. You want both in the top competition, but I think both would be more competitive in the Europa League.
Well, they may well be, but that's the spin that comes along with basically what's going to the fallout from Kairat Almaty. I think Rangers, for me, sadly are out because I don't think they're good enough. There's a big question mark over the manager. I think for a manager of Brendan Rodgers' stature and calibre, I think he should have been backed. And with that in mind, when I looked at the game as well as not being able to break people down, it started to fall into that classic, if there's no creativity, they go ba-bump, ba-bump along the back. Then Carter Vickers almost sells the jerseys and it becomes a predictable slow pace, and they fall into that slow pace that they did first time around in Brendan's time, where it just became turgid to watch. And at times last night, I didn't see a goal coming from anywhere.
It's the speed of play, Peter. It's not the speed of play. I mean, you look at, compared to Ange Postecoglou's team, no, they weren't as successful in Europe, but they were exciting to watch. Ange Postecoglou's team at Celtic, I think, getting it wide, getting the ball flashed across the goal. They were really, really quick on the ball, really, really quick in the final third. And I just don't see that with this Brendan Rodgers team at the minute. He needs better quality and he needs pace in the final third. As I said earlier, James Forrest for me is a guy who come on for 15-20 minutes and make an impact as a sub. You're flogging him at the minute. He's 34, 35. You're playing him every game. You can't be playing every game, Peter. You've got Jan coming on. He done okay when he came on. Gave the crowd a wee bit of a lift, but I think they're the key areas for me. I think Maeda, if you've got a striker, you play him through the middle. But Celtic need two wingers. They probably need a striker and a right back now as well. So they need four in.
Johnston's
going to be out for
6 weeks.
Minimum.
Yeah, and I would say this to you. The game was poor. We accept that. We look at Celtic and we look at Rangers this week, and it's not good for Scottish football. Doesn't throw us up in a good light. As far as Celtic are concerned, I will offer this. I think there's a chance that they could still get through.
There's still odds on with the bookies to get through, Peter.
But the other part of it now, and the fallout from this, is I wonder when there's the straw that breaks the camel's back. I wonder when there's breaking point of enough is enough, because already, there's a disgruntled fan base, but there's also a disgruntled manager. I think he's off at the end of the season. That's a stonewall certainty for me. I don't think they can change his mind, because I think he's actually at this point in his second stint where he's thinking, no, wait a minute, I'm in Groundhog Day here. And I think his line last night was unbelievable. Boards don't get the sack, managers do. And it's quite simply, I think he knows the writing's on the wall, that if he doesn't get the Kairat Almaty, he might get the 2 or 3 signings of half decent quality, because the board then starts to panic. The board that then looks and says, listen, Europa League's still going to be great, and here's these 3 signings that they've brought in, a Jamie Vardy, a bargain basement at 38, and then these other 2 or 3 players. But here's the chain of command on this. And I'm amazed that people are actually looking and wondering, who makes the decisions. It's blatantly obvious. You only have to look at the whole structure of the club. Dermot Desmond is the man in control. He says yes and no to everything. He decides the strategy of the club. It's Dermot Desmond who works out, this is how we're going to operate. This is how we'll move forward in transfer deals. And these people here in this chain of command are the generals and the soldiers who will make it all work, and they will abide by the blueprint that he has in place. Below that, you have the chairman. He's the most powerful man in Scottish football since 2003 onwards. Peter Lawwell is the man who then directs everything. Michael Nicholson is a chief executive who is a very skillful lawyer who keeps Celtic on a proper pathway. But as a chief executive in the same mould as Peter Lawwell, I'm sorry, Peter Lawwell's got too much experience and knows the game inside out. If there's anything that takes this ship down a pathway, it's under the direction of Peter Lawwell, because Dermot Desmond trusts him. Now, if that's open to criticism, if that's suddenly called into question, it's those two that direct everything that Celtic do. And by the way, you've got to look at it and say, financially, it's one of the best run clubs in the whole of the UK. So if you want, as some people say, they're a Champions League team as far as finance is concerned, Peter Lawwell and that board, as far as you were looking at it in the financial world, top class. That's a different game for the Celtic fans. They've said, listen, we're giving you all our money. Yeah. We're giving you all our money. You've got 100 million in the bank, and you're getting more money potentially from either Europa League or Champions League, but they want Champions League. And it's a £60 million roll of the dice. but it's, you know, it's not. It's in danger of being. It's in danger of collapsing, and that chain of command is where the anger will go.
Yeah, Peter, I think the lack of communication from Celtic as well to the supporters is a real issue among fans. From what I'm reading, you know, if it was Michael Nicholson or Paul Tisdale, somebody came out and says, "Listen, we've tried to sign A, B, and C. This is what we're trying to do. We're actively trying to sign players to help the manager." There's been nothing coming out, Peter, from Celtic. Nothing. There's been no statements, nothing coming out saying we're trying to improve the squad, we're ambitious. And I think that as well, that silence is deafening among Celtic supporters. They want to know what's happening. As you said, they're putting their money in, season tickets, strips, everything, travelling all over Europe to watch the club. And there's nothing coming out who they're trying to sign and what they're trying to do at the club.
How many times do you think they've qualified for a knockout phase in the Champions League since 2003?
3.
Three.
Strachan, Lennon,
Brendan.
Brendan now.
And over and above that, you're talking about a situation where I think the figures are out of group stage matches, trying to qualify for the group stages, they've failed 10 or 11 times. And in the group stage, they've finished third place once, fourth place, they've finished, I think, in double figures as well. So you've got three.
The older format was a lot more difficult for clubs like Celtic.
It was actually. You've got 3 knockout. You've got possibly, I think they finished fourth 10 or 11 times as well, and then 10 or 11 that I looked at in the stats where they just haven't even been able to make it to the group stages. It's not a great record when you consider the financial clout. If I was being critical of Celtic, I don't think it's a case of, you can't criticise them for the plan of they want to be able to make money and they do not want to be back to the days of maybe spending the millions of the Chris Suttons, John Hartsons at that period in time, you know, the Neil Lennons, who all cost a big amount of money at that time. They were on huge wages. Larson was on huge wages as well. But what I think Celtic fans are saying is, listen, just spend it better. Stop flooding the whole squad full of £1.5 and £2 million players who don't see the light of day. It's not a great record, Tam.
It isn't, but Brendan Rodgers and the board will point to Matt O'Reilly and Nicholas Kuhn, who cost £1.5 to £2 million.
But by the way,
I get that. I know.
Every Nicholas
Kuhn, they only need 2, Peter.
No, but for every Nicholas,
they only need 2. They can sign 10.
Absolutely.
They only need 2.
But for every Nicholas Kuhn, you have 10 mediocre or failures that don't get them where they want to be.
They'll argue that and say, well, sign day 2. There's £50 million.
Yeah, but they didn't make the Champions League.
I know.
Do you know what I mean? And
yes.
This is where the Celtic fans are looking at it now and saying, wait a minute, we're absolutely buying the strips non-stop. We're paying the season ticket money. We know there's a waiting list, which means really that we can't budge. I mean, I know guys that have spent £800 in their season ticket and they're scared to say we're not doing it. Do you know why?
Because they've just been them.
10,000 people behind them going, I'll take your ticket. And then you're bombed out. So your opinion doesn't really hold any sway. With a supply and demand situation that Celtic have at the moment, the board can stay silent. But they won't be able to stay silent.
That's irking supporters, but Peter, it really is. That's irking a lot of supporters from what I'm hearing and some of my friends. There's nothing coming out of Celtic saying we're trying to sign players. We're ambitious. We want to help the manager. There's nothing coming out. What will happen is, if they lose to Kairat Almaty, they will say something, because what will happen is they'll say what they said on the previous 10, 11 and 12 occasions when they've suddenly not been able to sign the big players. It's a difficult market. Players have got other options. We tried to get them, but we just couldn't get it over the line. They've heard it all before. But I think from a structure of the board, Dermot Desmond decides it. Peter Lawwell instructs them, and the rest of them follow suit. Peter Lawwell probably doesn't deal with the transfers, but he's put the whole structure in place and they follow that blueprint. And Michael Nicholson is the chief executive of it all. But collectively as a board, financially, you cannot argue with them. But as far as ambition, since 2003, no ambition. All about finances, all about making profits. And I think that's what's hacking the Celtic fans off. Me personally, I look at the game last night and I think, okay, terrible to look at, but I think there's a chance that they can still go through because they're good enough to actually go there and beat them. Yeah, it's different. It's a different game over there, Peter. It suited them last night. But it was the first time Celtic had not scored at home in 47 games.
Yeah.
So you could argue it was a one-off. They usually always score at home. But I think when you look at the game as a whole. They just came and sat in a low block, Peter, and they were pretty organised. They're 20 games into their season. They've come through 3 qualifiers.
Yeah.
They're fit, they're sharp. I thought they looked strong and fit and stuffy.
I'll tell you,
I think it's a different game over there when all of a sudden, we've got a chance, the pressure shifts a wee bit.
Yeah.
From underdogs when nobody fancied them to, we've one game away from making history and getting all sorts of bonuses and getting all this money. So I think it's a different game over there. Let's see how they handle it.
Yeah, before we switch to Rangers, I'll tell you something else. We've been talking in the last couple of days, and you've been part of it, about the Jamestown analytics and USG and Brighton and the amount of players they've sold on. I don't know what algorithm, what structure, what computer program, or what individual or group of people are deciding on Celtic's signing policy. But the success rate, I think somebody has to look at it. If Mark Lawwell fell on his sword for not being able to do it, the next person in is certainly somebody that I think will be under close scrutiny when you get to a situation where they're analysing whether Celtic have made it or not. But I think right now, people are angry. I think they should keep their gunpowder dry and wait and see where this Celtic side end up after Kairat Almaty. And then I think they'll be angry not because of pundits, because the manager's already thrown down the gauntlet to them.
Yeah, he's been saying it for a month, 6 weeks, Peter. He needs players in. I heard his interview after the game last night. Again, we need quality. Without actually coming out and saying it, you can see what he's trying to say, and the supporters back him up. But you're right. Celtic. People saying they're not spending money. They have spent money. I just don't think they've spent it well. You're right. And Paul Tisdale's the one director of football now. We've not heard much from him in the press or whatever. He's obviously working behind the scenes now to get players in alongside Brendan. And the focus is going to come on him pretty quickly as well. If Celtic don't qualify for the Champions League and go out and go into the Europa League and the standard of player doesn't improve, he's going to be one that's going to be looked at as well. Yeah,
nothing's going to happen at the moment. There are 2 key points for Celtic fans to think about. One of them is the return leg against Kairat Almaty, if that doesn't go according to plan. The second one is what reaction and how they try and put out the flames of anger coming from the board. And then the third element of it is by the 31st of August and into the 1st of September when the window closes, you then have another set of questions to ask Brendan Rodgers about the signing policy, whatever European competition he's in. We're going to talk about Rangers as well coming up next, but if you want to, you will be able to join us in the football show absolutely free, but you can get PLZ Premium. If you hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel, it opens up chance to win prizes. There are lots of things being sent out to our premium members who've signed up, and you could be one of them. All you have to do is hit that subscribe button on PLZ Premium for not only competitions, prize giveaways, but exclusive content as well, and there's lots of it coming up. Here's Kerry to tell you about one that we're going to announce the winner next week.
Subscribe to PLZ Premium today and you will be in our prize draw to win this fabulous Scott McTominay replica Napoli shirt. PLZ Premium is offering additional content from your favourite football channel. Subscribe to PLZ Premium today and you'll be in with a chance of winning this fabulous football shirt.
Thanks to Kerry and thanks to everyone who not only watches the programme on YouTube, but really consumes so much of our great content across all our social media platforms. Thank you so much. And to those who download the podcasts as well, because sometimes people don't like to see your face, Tam. Sometimes they just like to hear your voice. It's as simple as that. Rangers will head to Paisley to face St Mirren at the weekend. They've received a bit of criticism because suddenly it's a game where they're going to play it, because if you're being really cynical about it, they think they're going to take 3 points from St Mirren. I'm not so sure it's going to be that easy. This is possibly, of his 77 days in charge, the next 7 to 10 days could be really, really tough for him. I think that is going to be, for me, the making or breaking of Russell Martin.
Yeah, listen, I think the pressure is increasing on him now, Peter, from that performance and result the other night. Listen, we all thought Brugge were favourites to go through. I think they showed their quality on the night, but to be 3-0 down at home after 20 minutes is totally unacceptable for a club the size of Rangers in such a big game. Listen, you can talk about the manager. The first 2 goals are a joke in terms of the players. The first goal, Giga's got to run with him. He just lets the guy run. I've never seen that in my life. You run with the guy, and then you pass it back. I've no blame at all to Jack Butland, or else you put it in the stand, Peter.
Yeah.
Second one, nobody's picking him up in the box. Third one's a great finish.
See if you're nervous. Now remember, this guy's potentially was a £10 million player. See if you're
weeks ago.
See if you're nervous. Yeah, absolutely. See if you're nervous at 2 minutes gone in a game because the whole noise and everything, and you're thinking to yourself, "I've just got to steady the ship." You just lump that into the stand.
Yeah, they can't score for there, Peter. You're right. And from when he first came in, I thought he looked very, very good in the Panathinaikos games. All of a sudden, sent off against Alloa, last man, and then a dreadful mistake there. I just think Rangers weren't good enough on the night, Peter, but second half they were better. I think Brugge went 3-0 up and went, right, the tie's near enough done here, let's just sit in.
So they're not better.
And Rangers, I think Brugge are a better side, Peter.
No, they're not.
No, I thought Rangers
are not better.
I thought Rangers were better second half, Peter. They were better. I mean, they scored the goal, the borderline one for the one that was disallowed, 3-2, you maybe get a wee sniff, but they were better because it was desperation football, Peter, and they had to go and try and score goals.
I thought Bruges took their foot off the gas at 3-0, but I think from Russell Martin's point of view, and this is, again, we can only look at and listen to managers and our eyes don't deceive us on the performance of the players, but if we're talking a disgruntled group of Celtic fans, the Rangers fans are not even looking just at the Bruges game. They're looking at the collective of his 77 days in charge. They didn't fancy him to start with. They're looking at the way they're playing and thinking, what's happening here?
The problem is, Peter, that if you've got a set of supporters who didn't want a manager in the first place, and they've been vocal with that, and they're on message boards or talk shows or whatever, they want to be proven right. You know, it's like anybody, if you say he's rotten, you want to be proven right. You don't want, you want to be right. And a lot of Rangers fans have went straight away. Russell Martin, nah, no chance. He's not good enough. He's not the manager for Rangers. He starts rubbish. He starts terrible, and they're going, tell you, I knew he was. Yeah. So that has just grown, that groundswell for him to get the bullet, Peter. And you're right. He's got a massive game on Sunday against St Mirren. Then he's got the second leg. Then he's got Celtic, and then he's got Hearts and Hibs at home. So the next 4 or 5 games, I would suggest that he needs to take 6 points for the next 2 games. At least 4, Peter. If he doesn't take 3 points from St Mirren on Sunday, I think he could get the sack even this early, Peter. I genuinely do. I think if Celtic beat Livingston and they don't beat St Mirren, the league's almost done. They'd need to go into that Celtic game and beat Celtic. If they don't beat Celtic, you're 7, 8, 10 points behind already and out of Champions League. I
can't disagree with you. My looking at the whole situation with them is I've got them down for 1 point in the next 2 league games, and I've got them getting not a heavy defeat, but another defeat over in Belgium.
Well, if that's true, Peter, I don't think he'll.
Can he survive? Can he survive 1 point against St Mirren and Celtic?
No.
You think he'll go?
I think he'll go, Peter.
Yeah.
I do not think that he can afford to go 7 to 10 points behind Celtic, and we're still in September.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to say to you is this, Tam. The problem here is that the board is in its embryonic stage of trying to implement a business plan and their strategy. And right now, what they haven't...
They'll stick with him, Peter, as long as possible, because Kevin Thelwell will be the one who gets in the neck as well for appointing them.
Well, but you know what they haven't experienced yet, this board? And this is something new to them. They haven't experienced the madness of only 2 teams in Scotland that basically, if you don't finish above them, the fans go mental. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that prior to that, before Russell Martin, they were actually digesting Ancelotti, the son, who had no experience of being a manager, and the other main man that they all wanted back, inexplicably for me, was Steven Gerrard, who's been a failure as a manager. He's been a failure. I mean, he won the league with Rangers.
Wasn't a failure at Rangers.
He won the league with Rangers in the maddest of seasons, and then couldn't go as a manager and even replicate anything that suggested he had the qualities elsewhere. He's been a failure. And I don't see the fixation with Rangers fans with Steven Gerrard either. Right now, that board needs to sit behind Russell Martin and back him and hope he can guide them through the choppy waters until he gets a side that's settled. The biggest problem is, and I think this is something that we always talked about with regards, remember Pat Fenton at Hibs, and he did that many loan signings? 3 of Rangers back, 4 are loan signings. And honestly, it was as if they met each other in the car park.
Yeah, it's unacceptable for a club the size of Rangers, Peter. I think, I've played and been in dressing rooms, I've been a loan player myself. You've not got that same connection with the club. You're thinking about your permanent club, you're thinking about going back there, or you're thinking about getting a move somewhere else.
Or get me out of here.
Yeah, you've no really a connection with the club because, okay, they're paying your wages for a short amount of time, but you know you're probably going to go back to your old club, your parent club. So, yeah, you're right, Hibs is a good example of that. And for a club the size of Rangers to have 3 out the back 4, you know, as loan signings is totally unacceptable. And it's not just that, Peter, it's in the middle of the park as well. I don't think Raskin is completely at it at the minute. I think his head's elsewhere. Gassama looks a tremendous sign. He's the best player by a mile. You know, he's really dangerous. Ant-Man was poor. Danilo's poor. You know, they've got certain areas in the team they've got to strengthen, Peter. And I think they sold Jeffy today for £5 or £6 million, which will help them. But he's slowly but surely getting some of those guys out. But he still needs to strengthen the defence for me and probably bring in another number 9.
Only in Scottish football could you have a situation where Celtic are already out in front and we're not out of August and they're not happy with the board, and you have a situation at Rangers where the fans are not happy not only with the board but with the manager, and you've suggested that one manager could be out before August is out, and I would suggest the other manager at the other end of the city will be waving goodbye in May regardless of what he wins or loses. It's madness, isn't it?
Yes, and you know, any other football club you would think 77 days in charge, come on, get a grip. But Celtic and Rangers, and you're right, seconds nowhere here. Rangers supporters are desperate. They're desperate to topple Celtic. They're desperate for somebody to come in. Listen, they've spent money. They've spent £12-15 million. They've backed the manager.
Yeah.
But they want to see signs that they're getting better, and I don't see that at the minute, Peter. Maybe that will improve with a couple of other signings that they're supposedly bringing in, but I don't see a real improvement in Rangers from the first day Russell took over to now, and that's the issue with Rangers supporters.
Any good news, Tam? This has been one of the most depressing shows I've ever been involved in.
Well, we've got Hibs tonight. We'll continue to carry the can for Scottish football in Europe, but let's hope.
And Aberdeen.
Let's hope Hibs and Aberdeen can get through, because obviously Celtic and Rangers are both guaranteed the Europa League, but it'd be great for Aberdeen to be in the Europa League as well, and possibly Hibs in the Conference League. 4 teams in group football to Christmas would be great for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether that's going to happen or not, only time will tell. We'll talk about Aberdeen and Hibs and their performance on Friday's football show and look ahead to the weekend in the Scottish Premiership, where all eyes, I would suggest to you, will be first and foremost on Paisley at the weekend for Rangers' trip to face St Mirren, and then from there it's about the return legs in European football for the big 2, and let's keep our fingers crossed on Aberdeen and Hibs. We'll discuss them in greater detail on tomorrow's football show, but from Tam and myself, don't forget, hit that subscribe to Premium. You'll get exclusive content and lots of prizes coming up as well. Monday to Friday, though, the football show is absolutely free, and you can download it as a podcast as well. Thank you for listening and watching.